Let's begin our second hour here on Breakfast Extra with our big story for this morning. It's on a headline that has grabbed international attention. The U.S. government has announced that it will designate Nigeria as a country of particular concern under the International Religious Freedom Act. Prominent voices in the United States say this move signals not only serious concerns over religious violence in Nigeria, but also opens the door for sanctions and a reshaping of diplomatic ties.
Joining us to unpack the implications are Ikechukwu Amaechi, editor, niche newspaper, and public affairs analyst, and Collins Nweke, a foreign affairs analyst. Welcome, gentlemen.
Welcome to the program. Unfortunately,
thank you, Judith.
Thank you. Unfortunately, Mr. Ikechukwu Amaechi isn't with us at this time, but he will join us concurrently during the course of the program. Mr. Collins, very interesting turn of events for Nigeria and the United States at this time. Well, first of all, what do you make of this move by the United States deeming Nigeria as a country of great concern?
Thank you, Judith. Thank you, Chiweta, for having me. Well, I think I've been pretty consistent in my position about this. There is no genocide in Nigeria. I thought it is important to be unequivocal about that. Well, the United States thinks differently, and I just re-elevated Nigeria to the top tier of religious freedom concern. They moved, like you mentioned, that President Trump just a couple of days ago, I believe, announced under U.S.'s International Religious Freedom Act law. Now, a CPC label is serious, dead serious, not because it instantly triggers sanctions, but because it puts Nigeria under sharper diplomatic and investor scrutiny. And, it can lead to penalties as well, unless Washington grants a waiver. Now, what are the indications that, that waiver is going to be granted? Well, not very much, because if anything, Trump has actually threatened that, there's going to be military actions. Now, you begin to ask yourself, where is the consistency in action here? You want to take a military action that could, in fact, that will definitely result in more deaths of both Christians and Muslims, the same Christian, the same population that you claim to be, protecting. So there is a need to ask deeper questions in terms of what America's real target is, what their real interest is. Now, we have seen from, President Trump's body language and his actions, that he is a guy of, transactional diplomacy. So which means that he twists countries' hands, and by doing so, put them in a tight corner and get them to, make tariff or trade, concessions that, are actually in America's best interest. I think the time has come to look in that direction to actually see the extent to which, Trump really is concerned about Christians in Nigeria, rather than actually, pushing for America's, interest, using Christian genocide as an excuse to achieve that.
So, Mr. Collins, if you're to describe what this designation means, would you say it's coming from a place of selective, politicking per se?
Mm-hmm. Yes, that's what I would say, because for a country, like Nigeria, battling layered insecurity, this is a moment for facts, engagement, and reform. And frankly, it's also the price of diplomatic, absenteeism when Nigeria, since 2023, have not had, substantive, ambassadors in their posts. Now, coming to the issue of, selective politicking, well, there is absolutely no doubt that the United States has made Nigeria a target in this specific case. I do not want to speculate, but obviously, America, has its eye on something. It could be, a solid mineral somewhere up north, which the present government is actually not giving them access to. And now they are trying to, look for whatever excuse or the other to be able to, assess it by all means possible. So at this point, you can't rule anything out. And, quite apart from the fact that Nigeria has, left their embassies of man, there are indications of consistency in foreign policy in terms of actually knowing what they want, going for it in a very, very bullish manner. America just doesn't like that.
Okay.
And so, they now appear to want to achieve what they cannot achieve politically through, selective politicking.
All right. Now, we've been informed that Mr. Ikechukwu Amaechi has just joined us. He's the editor for the niche newspaper as well as a public affairs analyst and a friend of the house. Mr. Amaechi, thank you so much for joining us and a very good morning to you.
Good morning. How are you?
I'm fine, thank you. So now, before you joined us, our guest here, Mr. Collins Nweke, he asserted that, based on his own, understanding of this whole, turn of events, that there isn't any Christian genocide per se, and that, this move by the U.S., it has more undertones than it seems to meet the eyes. And knowing the body language of President Trump and his administration, this opens the table for a transactional diplomacy, and saying that Nigeria has left there's diplomacy open, international diplomacy open with the vacancies of ambassadors across its embassies around the world. What is your own assessment of this designation of Nigeria as a country of great concern? And do you agree with Mr. Nweke?
Well, it's not, no answer is going to do justice to the situation we have on our hands right now. It's easy to talk like Mr. Nweke is talking from, in quote, patriotic viewpoint to say Trump transactional politics, and that he wants to exert pressure on Nigeria so as to bring Nigeria to the negotiation table for whatever he wants to do. That may be right. But then, we lose sight of certain the fundamentals in this country. I don't know if you remember that in 2014, before APC came to power, part of the things they did to pressure the Jonathan government was a visit to the United States. On that visit was our former president-elect Muhammad Buhari, the current president Bola Ahmed Tinubu, the former governor of Edo State, Oyegu, and the former minister of transportation, Rotimi Amaechi. They met with the then U.S. Secretary of State, John Kerry, and part of what they did was to go and persuade the United States government to blacklist Nigeria. President Bola Tinubu was once quoted as saying that the slaughtering of Christians in Nigeria was getting out of hand and that Jonathan was not doing anything about it. Now, the table has turned. But having said all this, you see, let us ask ourselves the question, is there a deliberate killing of Christians in the north, which is what this is all about? Is Trump justified in declaring Nigeria a country of particular concern, CPC, because of the alleged persecution of Christians in Nigeria? The answer, again, like I said, depends on who you talk to. As Southerners, those of us living here, we could sit down in our comfort zones and say, no, there is no targeting of Christians in the north. But can people in Plateau State, can the communities that are being wiped out in Benue State, can they say the same? The answer is definitely no. You know, unfortunately, many of these areas, whether it is Benue, Plateau State, Nasarawa, they have predominance of Christians. So even if the attack is not necessarily to eliminate Christians, the victims are most times 99% Christians. So how do you explain that away? How do you explain that how many months ago, more than 200 people were killed in Yelwata, in Benue State? And almost 99% of them, if not 100% of them, were Christians. How do you explain the fact that all the girls that were taken from Chibok secondary school, was it in 2014, that almost 99% of them were Christians? How do you justify what is going on in southern Kaduna? But the most annoying part is that what is the government doing to stop all these killings?
And that's what I'm going to get into, Mr. Amaechi. And I want to ask you, not just stopping the killings, but also the body language from President Trump. He has somewhat threatened action on the country if no concerted efforts are made to stop the genocide. And then Mr. Nweke says, given how Trump moves, there could be a room for transactional diplomacy at this point. Is the U.S. looking for something? And so this is a Trojan horse, using the lives of those who have been persecuted due to their religion as a Trojan horse to get what they want: mineral resources, mines, gold, uranium. Your take?
Even if that is the case, even when we admit that Trump's presidency is too transactional for anybody's liking, the truth of the matter is that people are being killed in Nigeria. Therefore, we have created this condition that is necessary for him to come and pontificate. If people are not being killed the way and manner they are being slaughtered, then Trump wouldn't have had any justification. The question we need to ask ourselves before we start going off tangent and talking about what Trump has done or what he has not done, is that are people being killed in Nigeria? Nigeria is about the only country that is not in a war, literally, that you wake up in the morning and 200 people are slaughtered, and at the end of the day, nothing happens. When Buhari was the president, he said that people should go and reconcile with their neighbors. What has Tinubu done to ensure that we put an end to all these killings? After every killing, people we just come up with all this rhetoric. We need to live in peace. How do you live in peace with people who are killing you? Judith, go and check how many people are living in IDP camps in Benue State. The places they left, the ancestral homes from which they were chased out, go and check. Are those ancestral homes being occupied by people? Who are those people occupying them? And how do you tell people who have been chased away from their ancestral homes, who are living in IDP camps, and other people are now occupying their ancestral homes? How do you tell them that what is going on is not ethnic cleansing, is not genocidal? And the primary responsibility of any government is the protection of lives and property of the citizenry. Any government that cannot protect the lives of the people, every day we are burying people in mass graves. It is a shame. It is a shame that as a country, we have normalized these killings as if it does not matter. And like I said earlier, it is when you are not involved, when you meet people who are actually victims of these evil deeds, you will weep now for this country. We were here in this country when, how many years ago, a young lady, Deborah, was stoned to death in broad daylight, and her corpse was set ablaze. What happened? Who was tried?
I'm saying, what did she do? Sorry, I need to just interject at this point, but I want to come to you, Mr. Collins, at this point in time. What does this mean for Nigeria, especially our the impact in Nigeria as regards our reputation in Africa, being that we're key players in ECOWAS, Sahel, security architecture. We're very, very active when it comes to peacekeeping in the continent of Africa. But what with this statement coming from the President of the United States of America, what does this mean for us as how we're going to be seen in Africa?
Well, it doesn't look good on Nigeria. CPC as a designation can complicate licenses, training, and some security assistance. And it spoke capital at a time Nigeria needs foreign exchange, foreign direct investment, and stable risk premiums. Transparency plus action plan are really the antidote. Now, this is something Nigeria, should wish for. And let me be clear about something, because we need to balance narratives with data. I heard, Mr. Amaechi actually throw some percentages around, mounting up to 99%. I think it's important, to make one acknowledgement, and that is that violence in Nigeria is real and unacceptable, but, it is multi-causal and not confined to one faith community. That fact has been, proven to be accurate with data, not just, word of mouth. Precision matters to avoid policy overreach that harms, civilian communities and security, cooperation. And I believe that the crux of the matter now is not what Trump is doing or not doing, because yes, I agree with Mr. Amaechi that let us take the worst case scenario that the United States, has its eyes on certain minerals. Well, we have, as a country, we have to, ask ourselves, how best do we manage this? Do we manage this by, taking denial to mean diplomacy, or going silent when we should be, having a loud microphone in front of us?
Mr. Collins, I'm sorry, I'll just have to interject at this point in time, and that's because we need to go on a quick break. When we return, the conversation continues.
Thank you.
And welcome back. You're watching Breakfast Extra here on News Central Television. We're discussing the label from the United States on Nigeria, deeming the country as a country of particular concern, CPC. And with us, we have two guests. First, Foreign Affairs Analyst Collins Nweke, who joins us virtually, also joining us is Ikechukwu Amaechi. Is the editor, Niche newspaper, as well as a public affairs analyst. Gentlemen, thanks so much for being on standby. Now, before the break, we were talking about, our standpoint for Nigeria, seeing how very involved we are, not just with ECOWAS, being leaders of the sub-regional bloc ECOWAS, but also being a voice of reason in the Sahel region and a country that has grandstanding in the Sahel region. And seeing this label on us is very concerning. Mr. Nweke, I want you to finish your thoughts, because I know we had to cut you off. And when we finish, I want to come to Mr. Ikechukwu.
Thank you, Judith. Well, like I said earlier, this doesn't look good on Nigeria. Nigeria has been looked upon as, the big brother in Africa, providing leadership. I mean, President Tinubu immediately on assuming office, took on the position of the leadership of ECOWAS. Of course, there were some flip-flop here and there, but he gathered himself together and, provided them, great leadership that then he handed over to Mr. Bayo. Now, the point is that Nigeria has not been quite good in managing this narrative. I mean, where they ought to be speaking out, they have, stayed silent. And I believe that since this doesn't rub off well on them, particularly in the ECOWAS region, this can only be managed through, consistent, communication, very, very strategic. Besides that, there are a number of actions that they need to take to actually, maintain that credibility as a leading force in Africa. For a start, Nigeria needs to appoint ambassadors promptly. It cannot be that, you don't have ambassadors, because no ambassadors means no voice. Then I think it is critically important to launch a joint Nigeria-US working group on religious freedom and atrocity prevention. This is particularly important because, the two countries have got to start communicating on this matter. And then equally important is, publication of quarterly verifiable metrics on investigations and prosecutions. Because if you don't do that, then you allow, figures to, be flying around. For instance, 99% of Christians being killed somewhere when we do not have evidence to back that up. So Nigeria needs to, launch that verifiable metrics, publish it, and then they need to expand victim support and early warning in a number of hotspots, because that is the only way, to prove that as Christians are being killed, Muslims are being killed as well, and even traditional, religious worshippers. So these are four clear pathways that Nigeria must, mark out and follow in order to maintain its credibility in the sub-region, ECOWAS, African Union, but also internationally, with the propensity that the legislators in the United States, who are somewhere in the middle, who do not agree totally with Trump, but have lacked the evidence they require to be able to support Nigeria. This, this is the kind of thing they want to see to be able to stand firm, with Nigeria. Now, let's not make one mistake, and that is the mistake of thinking that in 2020, under this same Donald Trump, Nigeria was classified as such. When Biden came in, they reviewed it and took Nigeria out of that CPC list. Who came back again and put Nigeria back on that list? It is the same transactional Trump. So, you see, these things don't just, there are no coincidences here. Nigeria is simply a target. But am I exonerating the Nigerian government? No. There are things they ought to have done, low-hanging fruits, that they simply didn't do. And, that has to change.
Okay. So I must state this here, right? And I think it's very important that we put this out on the table. As media, we have had issues to go into affected regions where we have seen numbers. Church comes to mind, Plateau comes to mind. As far back as 1999, the Southern Kaduna also comes to mind. Also, you have to understand that our system, when it comes to data, has always been opaque. And that's only because the media and the authorities who are supposed to go in there, all the organizations who are supposed to get in there to tally those numbers, have issues going there, right? And so if we need to have the proper data, we might be playing, I don't know, ball for a long time before we ever get to the finish line, because it would take a while. And so I have to state that there. And I know there are some persons who have been doing the work and who are still doing the work in going and finding and uncovering stories of persons who have been targeted and communities that have been raised down, and questions of whether or not it's their religion or their ethnicity. But one thing is certain, these are happening. So with that being said, I'm going to give Mr. Ikechukwu a right of reply, but also ask about the government's response. Now, we know that as of yesterday, the president here has put out a statement, and there has been reactions to that statement as well. And it's been on the split side. One is saying, the response from Nigeria is very weak, not too much going on there. While others have said at least he did put out a statement. You can see that statement right there on the screen. And at the bottom there, the second paragraph there goes on to say, religious freedom and tolerance have been a core tenet of our collective identity and should always remain so. Nigeria opposes religious persecution and does not encourage it. Nigeria is a country with constitutional guarantees to protect citizens of all faiths. Mr. Ikechukwu, is this true?
Well, Judith, like I said earlier, but before I even comment, let me also react to what Mr. Nweke said. I wasn't throwing up figures just like that. I was specific. I said Chibok girls, super majority of them were Christians, and that is a fact. Over 90% of the Chibok girls were Christians. The people being slaughtered in Plateau State. There may be other extraneous reasons for the killings, but incidentally, those places are predominantly Christian communities. So again, I am right, and I need to be disproved by anybody. So I was specific when I made the comment. I wasn't talking about Zamfara. I wasn't talking about Katsina, where you have predominantly Muslim communities. So, but that said, look, Judy, there is nothing anybody can say.
What do we do?
We need to put our house in order. This is not about Trump. We are the people who have given Trump this
ammunition,
opportunity to insult us, if this is insult. But the truth of the matter is that we've not been able to put our...
Can we put our house in order? Can we put our house in order?
Hello?
I said, can we put our house in order?
That is the big question to ask. And the person who should answer that question is the President and Commander-in-Chief of the Armed Forces of Nigeria.
I mean, we just reshuffled. We just did a reshuffle, and new service chief heads have been appointed, screened and appointed at the highest level. Is there hope on the horizon? Is there a new dawn coming? Given their body language and the promises made on the floor of the legislature?
We have always had these promises. When Tinubu came into office and, of course, appointed General Musa and others, that was the same promise that was made. We can't live on promise alone. There must be reality. those promises must be translated to concrete actions that will stop people from being slaughtered. Judith, look, you've not been to Plateau State. I've been to these places. I was in Maiduguri when the Haram thing started, shortly after the killing of Mohammed Yusuf. And you see the way people are slaughtered like animals. People sleeping on their beds, and they are not sure, and they won't wake up the following morning. The bestiality that is involved in all this. You ask yourself, are we human beings at all?
Mr. Amaechi, I'm sure you're more than, of course, you want to answer this question, and of course we also love to hear your response. But right now, we just need to pause on the conversation and go on a quick break. That's right. We'll be right back. So Breakfast Extra, of course, we're having a conversation as regards the U.S. President designating Nigeria as a country of particular concern. We still have Mr. Ikechukwu Amaechi here and Mr. Collins Nweke. Gentlemen, we're about to wrap up this conversation, but please, your final thoughts.
Well, for me, one key question, keeps cropping up, and that is the question of if Nigeria had ambassadors, could this, have been prevented? Possibly mitigated, but certainly not, guaranteed. One point we need to understand is this. Diplomacy doesn't erase facts, but it shapes outcome. And so for me, Nigeria needs to start from there. And as closing remark, I just want to say that Nigeria must treat this, CPC moment as a policy audit, not a political, insult. The way forward is swift diplomatic re-engagement, visible protection of all communities, and verifiable justice against perpetrators. If we staff our diplomacy, clean up our data, and deliver on reforms, Washington has the legal room to waive punitive measures. I mean, not to talk of military action. This is how we de-risk Nigeria while upholding the dignity and safety of every Nigerian. There are no two ways around it.
There are no two ways around it. But you also said that knowing Trump and his administration, one thing that is at the forefront is transactional diplomacy. If he gets what he wants, could it be at the cost of human lives, Mr. Amaechi?
It will certainly be at the cost of human life. But the point is that you wouldn't, if Nigeria acts correctly, if Nigeria acts right, you wouldn't place Donald Trump in the position where he gets to getting what he needs, because he will be prevented by well-meaning legislators, both in the Capitol Hill and in the State Department, who will believe Nigeria's data, Nigeria's actions in protecting every community, every religious community. Once that happens, they will make it very, very difficult, if not impossible, for Donald Trump to achieve his goal of transactional diplomacy.
Mr. Amaechi, please go ahead.
Yes, the point I want to make, again, let me agree with Mr. Nweke that we need to clean up our system. But that said, look, you asked him the question earlier of the implication of this designation as a country of particular concern. The implication is huge. It can come with economic sanctions, some policy measures, and Nigeria is not in a position now to withstand any form of withholding of aids or economic sanctions. So we must do everything within our powers to ensure that we get out of that list. And all I'm saying is that in fact, if you ask me, I would say what Donald Trump is doing, I don't see him not coming to attack Nigeria. But what he's doing, I would say, is nudging our governments to do the needful. When he says stop killing, whether it is Christians who are being killed or Muslims that are being killed or enemies that are being killed, the truth of the matter is that Nigerians are dying unnecessary deaths in the hands of bandits, in the hands of terrorists, very unnecessary deaths. Can we stop these killings? And it behoves, if he is nudging us to stop these killings, it doesn't matter who is being killed. Whether it is a Muslim or it is a Christian, every death diminishes all of us. So it behoves the government to walk its talk. What I have seen is that President Bola Ahmed Tinubu does not have the political will to do the needful. He is not doing anything to prevent this acts of violence. He said he was going to continue from where President Muhammad Buhari stopped. And that is exactly what he's doing. Buhari never did anything to mitigate this disaster. It is a shame. Tell me any other country in the world where people are being killed unnecessarily, and they are being killed in Nigeria, not even in Gaza, that is fighting an active war. You wake up in the morning and 200 people are slaughtered in their sleep. And I'm using this word deliberately, slaughtered. I'm not saying being killed, they are being slaughtered. Because that is how they are being killed. And we pretend as if nothing is going on. The president will be traveling. He won't even visit to empathize. When he was eventually persuaded to go to Benue State, he didn't even go to the community where people were grieving. Instead, the state governor arranged for students to line up in the rain to give him a heroic welcome in a situation that ought to have compared solemn and somber disposition. So it is not about Donald Trump. We are missing the point when we talk about Donald Trump and his transactional diplomacy. We must, for our own sake, because it is a shame, we must stop these killings. And it is the responsibility of the government to guarantee the lives and safety of the citizenry. Whatever it is, we must stop this killing. That is where the issue is. It's not about Donald Trump. I'm not here this morning to quarrel with Donald Trump.
Right.
If we do not make our country as unsafe as it is today, I'm not too sure that a Donald Trump will be insulting us, because this is an insult to all Nigerians. And the only way to remove this insult is to do the needful. Stop these killings.
And the killings have to stop indeed. Gentlemen, I must say thank you for taking out your time this morning to join us for this very needed discussion. Now, all eyes are on the presidency as well to see what the next move will be. Now, a lot of gaps have been identified here. The absence of ambassadors at different Nigerian embassies across the world, as well as the fact that, you know, whether we like it or not, there are killings happening in flashpoint areas like a Middle Belt as well as Southern Kaduna. And also, all lives must be protected, whether being targeted for their religion, their ethnicity. The most important thing is Nigerian lives are being targeted, and something must be done. And their response to this has to be timely. Gentlemen, once again, thank you. Mr. Collins Nweke, Global Affairs Analyst, as well as Mr. Ikechukwu Amaechi, who is the editor with Niche Newspaper and Public Affairs Analyst.